Yo, at the filming of this video, it is Season 2 of OG Fortnite, and I know there are some of you out there who grind the mode. With that, I wanted to get back to my vibin'-jibin', Ken Beans-esque educational ways, and give you guys some tips for how to win in OG Fortnite games, whether it's fast-paced fighting and ranked, or just securing another victory for the OGs, or whatever that catchphrase is. Hopefully, you can walk away from this video with an edge in your game over the other players, regardless of FPS or ping. The first tip is probably the most important and the one you should take, if any, from this video. Farm, and farm some more mats. Why do I say this? In normal matches, you receive siphon mats after you eliminate a person, which comes out to 150 materials or 15 builds. In OG, you only receive the materials the enemy had when they died, which means if they were out of mats, GG, no mats for you! This means that farming is more important than usual, as eliminations alone won't secure you mats. This tip is specifically more important in off-spawn and before rotating out of your POI drop. During off-spawn, a lot of opponents are probably not going to have a lot of mats, as not a lot of time goes by before the fight begins, and the mats they do have will probably go towards fighting you. Work around this by finding places at your drop where you can farm mats fast. Check for what items give mats fast, whether it be those big oak trees, metal fences, or those luscious, legendary wood pallets. These are what you're going to want to farm before and after your fights. For an exact number, this could be your choice, but I'd say try to have at least 30 to 40 builds before fighting. With this, I'm usually fine for around 2 fights if I don't drone out on how I use materials, and it should be a good start for beginners and experienced players alike for how many mats to have. The second tip, don't fall into the trap of exploiting into boxes. This is one I learned the tough way, one of those 1 million losses I don't show in my videos, but it's an important lesson. In other game modes, like Battle Royale or Reload, jumping into boxes when the opponent is low has no immediate downside other than the obvious. The player has walls all around you. However, it's still not much of a risk to jump in, especially if you have the HP advantage, since you can place clones or stairs, effectively force a 50, all that. In Fortnite OG, guess what item is back? Traps. If an opponent, especially an experienced one, has this item, they can place traps on the side walls, which won't be much of an issue to dodge, but if they place them on the ceiling or floor and you are full boxed, you might as well take the minus 150 HP before it even happens. While that definitely is a tip you can use against opponents, a little sneaky one for the people actively listening to me, remember they can do it to you as well. So don't jump into boxes if possible. Instead, apply pressure through spraying them using an SMG or AR. If done correctly, this pressure will cause the enemy to edit, in which you'll have the chance to block their move, take their bills, their walls, their cone, etc., or do the little mobile classic thingy and beam them 200 to 0 yourself. In other words, play to limit the opponent's options when traps exist, not your own. Which gun is the best in OG Fortnite? For guns, I would say ARs reign supreme, and the OGs are probably familiar with one of the reasons why. That 2x headshot multiplier. Yes, when you hit a headshot with this weapon, it can do up to 70 damage, but why is that so important, and how does that make it better than the other guns in OG? This gun holds accuracy and does not drop off a lot in terms of damage with range like the SMGs. For example, the suppressed SMG is a good close range in this season because it shoots very fast, faster than the normal suppressed SMG in Reload, but after a certain distance it only does 8 damage, which even with the headshot multiplier is kinda iffy. The AR holds both decent damage and is more accurate than SMGs by a long shot with range, which is how most fights, especially those later on in game, will start. Your beams before that box fight matter a little more, as with the current loot pool, the opponent can't close distance as fast. Yes, they may have launch pads. Most will opt to use them for rotates though, versus eliminations. Unlike shockwaves or something in Reload, you know how people shockwave into boxes and all that. Though it may be a little obvious, this gun is goated use it. Tip 4 is one I already know a lot of people won't like, but remember, winning games is the goal. Do not land tilted towers. Yes, I know it's the reason that 99% of people are playing OG, yeah, and it's fun to fight at, but I want you guys to remember what I said in tip 1. A decent amount of your opponents that you're going to fight are probably not going to have mats. And as you know, a lot of players land tilted, like a lot. Well, I know there's a probability-based way of explaining this. To keep it simple, mo mats, mo players, mo problems. Meaning when you eliminate them, there's a chance they might not have mats, and a chance that you'll have to fight another player quickly thereafter. Unless you play in an extremely passive manner, for most this makes tilted annoying as it basically punishes fighting a lot of people, even if you have a decent amount of mats farmed. Best way to work around this? I wonder. Don't land there. Learn another drop, whether POI or one of the many solo spots on this map, which much more often than not will not be contested. You can do this quickly with the power of Fortnite GG, a website that shows where all the spawns are, chests, floor loot, and more. And chances are, you won't have to deal with the same amount of people as Tilted. I don't know, I have a feeling that not as many people that land Tilted would go to your drop. If you still want that Tilted thrill, Reload exists. Whenever that OG Chapter 1 Venture map spawns in, you'll get both mats off eliminations and have 3 lives, which works around the risks that you're facing in OG Fortnite. But this isn't a Reload video, but we can make one. Let me know. Tip 5 is a more positioning based tip. Play for high ground spots, in specific, the mountains across the map. Yes, this is another seemingly obvious tip. Take right. But I put more emphasis on this in OG, as open terrain or places with little to no natural cover is really open terrain. For an example, when you're running a Dusty from Salty in Season 2, there is little to no tree cover, meaning that you and opponents will be wide open when in these areas. So, to literally and figuratively take the high ground, sit on the mountains. They give you a lot of area to scout and find enemies to fight in the match. There's a reason behind why you've probably gotten sniped by people sitting on these mountains. They make the game that much easier in OG Season 2. My personal favorite, as you can probably guess, is the mountain near Loot Lake and Dusty Depot, as there's lots of areas you can scout. It's almost a triple threat of sorts, as you can see people from Tilted, Salty, and Dusty, with an inconceivable amount of open terrain in all 3 areas. On a smaller note, opponents can't sneak towards you before you see them usually, as they'll likely need to build up to get to the mountain or launch pad or something. And if you're checking angles, you'll notice. So be aware while you're on these mountains. Once again, it is a no-duh tip, but it'll make finding enemies and potential eliminations way easier. In direct connection to tip 5 and thus shorter, avoid open terrain. If you are in these areas and get sniped, that is because of where you are. As said before, it is easy for enemies to see you because you got no cover. How does one work around this? Find trees near your drop and use them to rotate around them. You can also hug mountains, which means going directly under them, so it's more difficult for enemies on the mountains to see you. If open terrain is completely unavoidable, you have to rotate through it. I understand that happens sometimes. This is where you would use launch pads to close the distance, and chances of getting sniped will soar down. But if you only have one and you're trying to save it for endgame or something, be self-aware you're in open terrain, maximum paranoia. I'm talking constantly check in every single direction for enemies, like every 4 or 5 seconds, so there's more of a chance that you see them before the inverse, them seeing you. Finally, for tip number 7, remember that the fundamentals of Battle Royale that you likely already know don't change. Stuff you've learned from Peace Control and box fighting videos will be just as useful in OG. The same holds true for rotates and games and stuff. It still applies and will continue to apply. Other than in Season X. I can't ensure everything will there. Taco time? That tilted tower thing that I already forgot where you can't build? Yeah, I don't know, but we will. And that is it for my first OG Fortnite educational video. Probably going to do one every season. Let me know if you want more of these, and if you have any OG Fortnite related questions, I'll do what I can to answer them in the comments. Nothing more to say. Use code PERSIV in the Fortnite item shop. Peace.